your armhole, the neckline that we have just drafted with the vintage. So you see how lovely it is. So we can just embellish this with. All right. So for this top drafting, we are going to use this vintage for the front panel, and this vintage, it will have the back part, it will be the plain Junkoso fabric, and then the embellishments, the accessories like the sleeves will still be the plain Junkoso fabric. So this is a 1 yard of vintage, and I am working with a big size chest measurement. So if you are working for your husband, for your client, this is for a plus size person, like from 50 chests and above. Remember that this outfit should be a very free outfit, so that it can one size fits all, right? So it mustn't be fitted, it should be a bit free for your client. So I will try to use a color chalk so that you can see my drafting, but then bear in mind that if you have followed my previous videos on how to draft a regular senator outfit, you won't have any issues or whatsoever in drafting of this outfit. So here you mark out your baseline as I have always instructed. So you mark out your baseline in this form. So once your baseline are properly marked out, now the next you will do is to get your 4 inches for your hem allowance, which is very important. So your hemming is always 4 inches. So you mark 4 inches in this form, and then you connect the line all through this way, and you apply the length of the top. So with the top length I have, it's a top length of 34. So but we are going to do it, okay, let's do it 35, but we are going to deduct the band measurement, because we are going to put this green at the baseline so that it will blend it very well. So the band is going to be 2.5, so I will remove 2.5 from 35, so I will have 32 and a half, right? Yeah, 32 and a half. So now since we have 32 and a half left, so remember that you will join the band and you also join the shoulder, so add 1 inch again, that's 33 and a half. So by the time you do the whole joinings, the band will augment the top length all through. So 33 and a half is what I have, right? So minus 2 and a half and then add extra 1. So that is for the professional calculation. So you go about this way. Bear in mind that the band might be less than 2 inches if you so wish, but 2 inches is ideal. So here you mark 2 inches band extension or additions, and then you go all through this way. So this is how it goes, right? This is how it goes. And after which, the next you will do is to get your armhole. So the way I do mine, chest is 50, shoulder is 20. There are 2 ways to get your armhole, either by chest over 4 minus 1 or by shoulder over 2. So it depends on the fit you want to have. So because of the fit pattern I want to have, I will use 11 inches for this particular outfit for the armhole. And the decision was gotten from the chest over 4 minus 1.5, right? So I just wanted to have more fitted outfits, more fitted armhole here. So I marked 11 there, and after the 11 I will mark my 50, which is 12.5. You can still decide to make it more than 50 depending, so but let's use 50, and you mark 50 right there and mark extra 1.5 inch or 2 inches. Then the shoulder, like I said, is 20, so plus half is 20 and a half. Then you have to bend your tape in this form and mark your shoulder in a slanted form just like this, and then you come down by 2.5 inch for the shoulder slant or slope. Then the neckline is 19, so whatever your neckline is, you're going to divide it by 6, and then you calculate it very well. And then I have made a video on how to get your neckline, so you can make do to watch the video on how to calculate your crotch, armhole and neckline. It was well explained in the previous video. So here you also mark your neck depth and also your neck width in this form, and after this you get your neckline curve. So it goes all through in this form. And then the next you will do here is to slant this one just like this. It slants to the neck edge. It comes in this form. And then you are going to slant this as well, going in by 1/2 inch from the shoulder point, and after which you get your armhole curve, place it 1/2 inch inwards until it intercepts here. So you can just make it to go all through straight up this way. So this is for the front panel. Then because it's a vintage fabric, it's the material is not stable, so you have to be careful as well while doing all of this. So this is just it, and then extend it all through. So now it's optional that this outfit will have a side slit opening at the baseline. It's optional, but then the trick to decide is if the chest measurement you are using is bigger than your hip value, then you can decide not to have a slit. But if the chest measurement is not bigger than the hip value, or if they are the same, that means slit is essential, because the slit opening there will help your back, your hip to sit properly or to fit in properly without much stress. So I am putting a slit of 7 inches or thereabouts at the side. So I have to extend my hand before cutting the sides to indicate the slit point. So you cut all through this way. So this front panel now is what you are going to use to now cut out the back panel as well. Remember that the sleeve will be the plain fabric. On no account should you use the same vintage for the sleeve. It will make the work to be childish. So this is a boutique standard stitching or patterning I am trying to teach you. So you should. Okay, let's take a look at what we have drafted. So this is the perfect point of your armhole, your neckline that we have just drafted with the vintage. So you see how lovely it is. So we can just embellish this with a small pen pocket of the design and then piping of that green, and you are good to go. You can decide to put it flap or shoulder zip, anything, then put the band at the hem as I have instructed. So this is for the front panel. So let's now fold for us to cut the back piece. So for the back piece, we are still in the process of getting all our panels perfectly drafted. So meanwhile, this fabric, the plain fabric I bought was 3.5 yards for the trouser and the completion of the top. So 3.5 yards is the yardage I am using to draft this maxi size. So this is how it is. Then the next here is to fold this in this form, and then this is what it will look like. Then carefully you arrange. Now please note that some vintage used to shrink when you are ironing. So if you want to iron this now, you can iron it before you draft even the front panel, so that you will know the extent of shrinking. But mine, I don't use to iron. I'll try to leave it as firm as that. Then I make sure I pick the best of vintage in the market that does not shrink while ironing, or does not change shape or form while you iron. So here we have achieved the front panel. Now let's draft the back piece. Now for the back piece, you are just going to extend the shoulder region by certain inch as well. Now here we are going to extend the back panel by height of 2.5 inches this way. The same 2.5 is what we are going to extend all through this way, and extend the line. It comes all through this way. Then tilt your ruler to go out in this form, and we have our neck depth of 1.5, which seems to be constant. Then the neckline extension, so it tilts down this way. Like I said, I have taught us perfectly well how to draft or how to, program your back necklines so that it doesn't tilt. It doesn't give you irregular shapes. So here you cut out this. Now please bear in mind that you are going to use the same vintage for the inner back facing of this outfit. So this will help you to have a perfect fit or a perfect measurement. So here you cut the shoulder equally, the armhole rather, equally this way. So you go all through in this direction. So when you have this perfectly done in this form, then you cut it out. You go all through this way. So please note that you are not done yet. Still watch the very end so you get to understand some tricks you can use or you will use to make sure you balance your necklines properly. So here you are going to fold the back panel to come in front, so it comes exactly this way. So as you can observe, my cutting was perfect. That's why there's no extension or no encroachment. So little encroachment here will still be adjusted. Now the essence of this adjustment I am doing here is to make sure that the back neckline and the front neckline corresponds without any issue. So please, if you observe carefully, you will see that the hem at this point, I have an extension of 1 inch here. Now this extension is very important and it helps you to balance your neckline. I have shown this in some of my videos I did on the sewing process, but let me explain here. When you have joined the shoulder together, you are meant to drag this front panel to come down to meet this 1 inch. By so doing, you will get a perfect neck curve, right? And then trim your armhole, and then you're good to go. So that is the sense of all of this I have just explained. So now the next is the sleeve. The sleeve. Now note importantly that in cutting your sleeve, you must make sure that your sleeve is perfectly drafted. When some persons are complaining of wrong fitting, I do tell them that every process you undergoing counts. But if you don't take it seriously, you would think that the fault is from the fabric. The fault is not from the fabric, it's solely from you, because if you have taken the steps seriously, you would have observed where you must or you might have been making mistakes all these years. So here, what is my guide to fold my sleeve? My guide is the round sleeve of the customer, which happens to be 19, that's 9.5, right? Plus extra 4 inches. That is my guide to get my folding. So whatever the round sleeve you have, divide by 2 plus extra 4. Once I've gotten that, fold the fabric to be up to that, and then mark out your lines just like this. And then, because we are not going to put any additional vintage at the sleeve, I want the vintage at the sleeve, the sleeve to be plain. So I will do a regular folding. So here I will mark 3 inches for my folding or for my hemming. Mark my regular 3 inches all through this way, and then mark the line to come in this form. And after which I will get the sleeve length, which I happen to have to be 17.5. 17 inches for the sleeve, and then ½ inch to join the sleeve to the shoulder. That is how it's going, right? And then here you connect the lines all through this way as well. Then the round sleeve we are going to have here is a round sleeve of 17. That's 8.5 plus extra 1½ inch or thereabouts. Then come down here by 4 inches or 4.5. Then with your freehand sketch, you can make an inverted S shape all through this way, and then it tilts all through this way and goes out this way as well. Then you cut it out. So this is a simple illustration on how to draft your sleeve. So this is how you draft your sleeve. So you cut it out, you go all through this way. So this is what it looks like. So you see that when you fold this, it's have an extension. You can still trim it out so that it relaxes very well. So this is for the sleeve aspect. So you can just drop your chalk to differentiate the front from the back as well. So the facing of this, okay, let's cut the band first. The band of the vintage area, because that band is very important, that you don't need to miss it as well. So now for the band part, what all you need to do here is to fold a certain fabric by 2.5, that's plus extra half, to that's 3 inches. So when you have gotten a certain fold this way, now you bring the front panel just like this, then measure the half of it, that's on fold 16, that's 32. So here you measure 32, right? You can put extra 33 so that you have enough, then mark it out. Then here it must be up to 3 inches and thereabout, then you cut it out. So the reason for this is to make sure that the fabric you have will be enough for the whole process of the sewing. So you cut it out all through this way, so this will be what it looks like from here. And the band for the hem has been drafted out, right? Then you are going to keep it as well, and then bring the back panel. So the back panel is where you have your back facing installed or drafted. Remember, I told us that you are still going to use your vintage for the inner facing. Now the vintage for inner facing is very essential and very important as well, because it helps you to have a nice finishing effect from the inside. So here you place your back panel. So here you place your back panel just like this. You place your back panel just like this, and then this is what it looks like. The back panel just like this is what it looks like. And then you cut your neck, the neck depth just this way. You cut your neck depth just this way. So this is what you have, and then you cut here as well. Cut here as well. Then we are going to raise it up. So slash it out from here. Slash from here. So this is the back facing. Now the next we are going to cut out from this fabric is the piping or the bias. Remember that it must have a bias, or what they call piping, right? So bias or piping. Then the bias must come in a diagonal form, that's angle 45 degrees. So here you look for the best space or the best point where you can get that piping correctly. So here I think is the perfect point for that bias to come in. So here you mark your lines in this form. So here you mark your lines in this form, and then you mark 2.5. So this 2.5 inches you are marking is the width I want to use. Some persons can use 2, but 2.5, I think I prefer the end result, because it gives me that little bit bold piping effect, which I feel is comfortable for my clients. So, but if you prefer to have the slimmer type of bias, you can go ahead and mark or use 2 inches, and it will come out nicely for you as well. Then here you will try to cut out the bias from this angle. So you cut it out, and then the length of the bias will be more than the width, or that rather than the circumference of your neckline. So if your neckline is 17, for example, you can add extra 3. So if your neckline is 19, you can add extra 3. So whatever your neckline is, add extra 3 to it, or even 4. So that it's better that the bias is longer than the neck than the bias was not enough. So in most cases, I tend to cut as long as I want. But then if your fabric is not enough, extra 3 to 4 inches is recommended, so that the bias will be able to go around and cover the flap, the facing, the back neckline, and every aspect of it, so that your bias will not stop on the way. So this is what I have for my bias, and I am done with this. So now, I remember I told you that you are going to use the vintage to cut the inner neck. So we are still going to bring the back piece, the back panel. So for the back panel, you are going to put the fancy, this one as fancy. So here we have it this way. So fold this in this form. You can either put it as a full facing at the back or as half, whichever one you didn't fit. So I think we are gonna put it as full facing at the back. So what you will just do, since we are doing a full facing at the back, is to bring the back facing, then cut exact of this, but in a smaller length. So this is the full facing we have. So we are going to fix this. We are going to reduce this by like 3 inches or 2 inches this way, but make sure that what is left is up to 6 inches or more than 6 inches. So once you gotten to this point, you tend to cut this out in this form. Cut this out in this form, and then what was vintage, I just gave a little space so that when I fold, it doesn't shrink. Then this will be folded boldly in order to give room for the vintage to come in, right? This will be folded boldly here. So we are done with the vintage of the inner neck. So thanks for watching, guys. I think the next is going to be the sewing aspect of it. So you can still make do with my other videos on sewing, and you are good to go. Bye bye for now.